So in the beginning, I had very selfish reasons to coming to this space. I wanted to help me. And in that journey of transformation, it became so much more and so different. And within 10 months, me serving others was what just lit me up. And I wasn't capable of that when I started. I was too judgmental. I was too lacking in grace. I was too hard on myself. I was too judgmental on myself. So those 10 months was healing. It was a path to self-compassion. Yes, I learned coaching models and coaching techniques and how to help the client reframe and how to help the list goes on of what I learned. But really it was uncovering the truth of me and getting back in touch with who I really am. We are not born without self-esteem. We are not born feeling small. We are not born feeling inadequate. We learn that. And through my coaching journey, my first year was my transformation, unlearning stuff that I never should have taken on. It was never mine to take. That's how I recovered me. And in that recovery, at about 10 months' time, I was feeling way more expansive, way more passionate, way more loving. So I was meeting people I'd never met before. So if you're wondering how does this start for you and how do you make it happen, then ask yourself, have you started with that first step yet? Falling in love with service, falling in love with models that can help you, putting aside worrying about how you're doing and just thinking about how are they doing. Have you learnt yet to connect with how much it matters, how they're lighting up? And your light begins to shine brighter and brighter because of that. We've got to give value to be worthy of the shine. You guys get that? Our self-esteem doesn't come just because we sit here, I'm going to feel self-esteem is going to arrive in the mail at any moment. I'm going to feel really great belief in myself and all the courage I need. Here it comes, here it comes. It doesn't work that way. Buddha said, before enlightenment, chop wood. After enlightenment, chop wood. It is through these activities, this grace, that we begin to feel full. That fullness, that void that some of us have, it gets filled through service to others. That's how it begins. So the 10-month mark, I was feeling way more expanded, thinking, who do I want to work with? Because up until then, it'll be who'll have me. Will anyone have, please, let me help, I'll do it. Oh, yes, I can work with that. Then it became, who do I want to work with? And I identified a company I wanted to work with. It was called Flight Centre. You might have heard of it. So I called up the learning manager. It took about 4 phone calls to find them, to say the following question. Who's in charge of your success coaching initiatives at Flight Centre? And she said, we don't have anyone. I said, who's designing your success coaching initiatives for Flight Centre? She goes, we don't have anyone doing that either yet. Would you like to have a conversation about how you'd go about designing a coaching initiative to help your team members be more successful? Well, it's worth a conversation. So we got together. I'd come so far. If you can remember my first client, Tanya, knocking on the door, do you coach? Yes. To this is something I can help you with. So we met, phenomenal woman, heart of gold, because that's who I was attracting now. And we had a great conversation. She said, you really need to be a part of Flight Centre. You're a match. Really? That's amazing to hear those words from where I'd come from. I was so tuned into how far I'd come. And I'll cut this bit of the story short, but I went on to secure in the next 90 days $1 million coaching contract with Flight Centre. Thank you. And I just want you to remember where I began. They had a contract, they were going to sign it, and the same day they went to sign it, a competitor in the coaching space, who you may have heard of, it's another coaching school, heard about the contract and tried to undercut and undermine me. So they phoned up this beautiful woman and said, we can do it better. You shouldn't go with her. We've had more experience. So I phoned this beautiful woman and say, I heard you got a phone call. She goes, Sharon, let me be clear. We're going with you because your heart is where we need it to be. Anybody who would phone and attempt to do that to somebody else is not someone we're going to do business with. We signed the contract. As a result of that, because I opened to that, I then flew around the world with Flight Centre to the USA, Canada, New Zealand, I can't remember where else, and everywhere I went, I picked up coaching clients. Everywhere I spoke. They would queue to work with me. I just want you to remember where I began. If you're ever wondering how this story unfolds, in one day I had 10 clients enroll with me at $5,000 a client, and they all insist on paying in advance, and they all knew the waiting list at that point was 6 months. And remember where I began. I was suicidal. I wouldn't leave my house. I was afraid of people. I was afraid of living. One client who I already knew, Tanya, terrified me at the thought of saying yes to my first paying client. That's the journey of transformation. Now, that's not going to happen like that for everyone. And some of you are going to hear that and say, that's not the journey of transformation I want. More power to you. That's my story. Now, as a result of that, the next thing that happened was my husband and I went out for breakfast. I sat at the bay. And JB said, this is getting out of hand. You can't keep up with all the coaching. You need people to come to you. You can't keep going out to everybody around the world. And he said, you should start a coaching school. So within 18 months of me starting my coaching journey and not having the confidence to speak to people, the Coaching Institute was begun with 8 students who all bought from a single-page website that was beyond awful. I wrote the manual as I enrolled those 8 students. So the first manual was photocopied in my lounge room. I wanted to give them CDs, so I went to Officeworks. I bought blank CDs, jewel cases, you know, the covers, how to print on a CD, how to create a jewel cover, and I stayed up for night after night creating what I wanted for them to have as their gift pack when they joined. And those first 8 students was the beginning of the Coaching Institute. And that's how we all got to be here. And I think that's amazing. That's how we got to be here, guys. It's in just, that was 17, 18 years ago now. So wherever you are on your journey, maybe just ask yourself a couple of questions. Did I take one step forward today? That's all I did. Each day, one step. Just one step towards my dream. Sometimes those steps were so small you could barely detect them. You would need a magnifying glass to find the steps I took some days. They were so small and so filled with nerves. Will I be enough? Will it work for me? What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work out? Just I could bring so much negative self-talk to every step I took forward. Take one step forward, no matter how small it is, every single day. The second thing I did was I recognized that I needed to be my best friend. I became a coach to manage my self-talk. That's why I became a coach, because my self-talk was so disempowering and so overwhelmingly negative. I needed to find a way to me. It couldn't be that my brain only wanted me to stay living in fear. It couldn't be that that's all I wanted for myself. So I joined to get this voice to be kinder and to become a best friend. And that took me 6 months. And I found I could bring all that self-doubt with me as long as I was willing to use the systems. Because eventually the self-doubt had to prove it being defeated. It just couldn't argue anymore with what was happening. So that's my first 12 months. That's how I did it. That's a little bit of my story. I hope you've enjoyed it and hopefully taken something away from this.